Welcome to episode 44 of the Becoming Mind Strong podcast. And today we're talking about a very valid and very real concern that a lot of people have when they hear about the skill of macro tracking. And that concern is this. They say, I already feel like I'm obsessive about my food, right? I spend so much of my life thinking about what I quote unquote should or shouldn't be eating, thinking about how my clothes fit, thinking about how I feel, thinking about food in general. Isn't adding the skill of tracking on top of that just going to make me more obsessive about it? Check it out. So I want to start this episode by being crystal clear. I am never here to sugarcoat things, right? My job is to teach what I call capital T truth. So I say that because I want to validate this very real concern. Having the concern of, listen, I'm constantly thinking about food. I'm constantly worrying about what I'm eating. Doesn't it feel obsessive to now start tracking my food? That is a very logical concern. If I didn't know about this skill, and if I was still in that struggle phase, I would have the same concern. It makes total sense. So I want to be clear up front that if that's your mindset thus far, when you've heard about calorie counting or macro tracking or whatever the process that you've been introduced to, if that was your concern, that is a very valid concern. What I want you to understand is this. It is one thing to think about the food that you're eating. It is another thing to ruminate. And I'm going to use the word ruminate more times than you can count in this podcast episode, because rumination is at the heart of anxiety. If you study anxiety, what's actually happening in your brain is that you're playing the same worried thoughts on repeat over and over and over again. So if we're going to be technical about this, and I am for a second, and you'll see why. What we are currently doing, if we haven't taken control of our nutrition yet, what most of us are currently doing is we are ruminating about our relationship with food. We're thinking thoughts like, I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't eat that. I shouldn't eat that. I should only eat that. Or why did I eat that? Now my pants feel tight and I ruined my goals. Or man, I sniffed pizza last night and now my jeans are too tight. We are playing these thoughts on repeat, most of which we're not even conscious of. It's just happening all day, every day. And then we wonder why we feel like crap. There is a massive difference between ruminating on our unhealthy relationship with food and taking a couple of minutes each meal to think about what food we're putting into our body. Now, that's step one. Step two is this. When you do the skill, when you learn macro tracking, what happens is part one completely disappears. And if I could put every emoji, exclamation mark, anything into this podcast, this is where I would put it. And here's what we need to understand about this. Right now, it is a capital T truth that the vast majority of us are draining not only our mental, but our physical energy in this rumination. If there was a way to scientifically calculate, and I would love if this was possible, if we could scientifically calculate the energy that you spend in a day ruminating, I shouldn't have eaten that. I should only eat this. Why aren't I doing this? I should be doing this. I feel this way. All those negative thoughts on repeat. If we could calculate the mental and energetic drain that is taking on you, you would be flabbergasted. And that is the only word I have for it, because it is literally draining you. When you take complete control of your nutrition, and we're going to talk more about what that looks like in a second, when you learn this skill, it is not an exaggeration. It is not hyperbole when I say that completely goes away. Completely goes away. If you know about energy, if you study the science of energy, energy doesn't disappear. Energy takes on different forms. So all of that mental rumination that was draining you, suddenly, it's not that that just goes away. It's that all that energy that went into it is now freed up. It is not a coincidence that if you talk to people who have gone through our program and they say, wait a second, I thought I was coming here to learn about nutrition. And suddenly I'm the happiest person I've ever been. I'm advancing in my career. I'm the best partner and mother and whatever else. That's not a coincidence, because all the energy that used to be spent draining you and living in that negative state has to go somewhere. So when it's freed up, it shows up in other areas of your life. This is when you start leveling up at work. This is when you start showing up as your best self. And there is nothing better than that. Now, the mental focus that we're putting on food is very different. Again, before it was this rumination, it was this loop of negativity. What you're doing now is you're playing a game. I call macro tracking the game of Tetris, because when you eat your breakfast, you have 2 eggs and 3 pieces of bacon and 2 pieces of toast. You're taking what, a minute, maybe a minute and a half if it's new to you, and you're putting it into an app. And that's it. And then you're going on with your day. And towards the end of the day, you're taking another, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes this time. And you're going back, you're looking at what you have left, and you're adjusting accordingly. A whole conversation around the skill of macro tracking is beyond the scope of this podcast episode. But I want you to see the clear difference here. In the first part, we are ruminating, we are playing on loop the negative thoughts, we're beating the crap out of ourselves, and we're walking around feeling like garbage. In the second scenario, we're taking a few minutes to play a game. We're coming from a place of curiosity. We're eating the foods we love and we choose, but we're taking a couple minutes a day to just study them, to make adjustments, to tweak, to adjust. We're not telling ourselves what we can or can't. We're not telling ourselves what we should or shouldn't. Because, side note, if you haven't listened to that podcast episode, go back and listen to it. The second you tell yourself you have to or you should, you're never going to stick with it. And the beauty of macro tracking is there's no have to, there's no should. You eat whatever the hell you want as long as you hit your goals. Best of all, so first of all, I want to be clear, those are two separate conversations, right? It's a valid concern, but when we break them down, they are two very different functions of our brain. One is worry, one is anxiety, one is rumination, one is a loop, one is making us feel like shit all the time. The other one is a game. It's curiosity. It's a couple minutes out of your day to learn a skill. It's interesting. Most people are like, I can't believe how much fun I'm having learning this game in the nerdiest way possible. Most importantly, and for me, this is the key. This is the thing about my macros that gets me so hyped up. That energy that you used to spend ruminating, obsessing, beating yourself up, it has to go somewhere. And where does it show up? It shows up in this best version of you. The you that shows up on the other side of this skill, it has nothing to do with nutrition. The weight loss will come. That's math and science. We don't have to worry about that part. But what people don't expect, and the by far most life unleashing part of this, is how you show up in this world. When you have that energy, when you have that confidence, when you have that control, that shows up in how you arrive at your business, at your company, for your family, for your friends, for your kids. It will transform who you are as a person, and you will never, ever, literally never, ever, ever ruminate about your relationship with food again.